Hello everyone and welcome to another News Coolum video, another plug side chat. In this video I wanted to talk about, well, what GM is up to with the federal tax credit for electric vehicles. Right now it's September 11th, 2018, so we're right at the end of Q3 for 2018. And GM is about 10,000 units short of triggering that phase out for the $7,500 US federal tax credit that you get for buying an electric vehicle in that calendar year. Now, the way the phase out works is you essentially get the entire quarter that when you trigger that 200,000 units sold, and that's an unlimited number of $7,500 credits during that quarter. And then you get the subsequent quarter at the full 7,500, and then it phases down to half credit after that, and then a quarter credit, and then it phases completely out. What's interesting is it's been very clear that GM has been sort of deprioritizing US deliveries for the last 6 months or so. The last 3 months or so, they've sold more Bolt EVs in Korea than they have in the United States. And all of that seems fairly obvious that they're trying to extend the federal tax credit. To what end, I'm not exactly sure. I believe it's because they do have some other electric vehicles that are going to be coming online, and they want to make sure they at least benefit from some of the federal tax credit, if not maybe at least one quarter with the full tax credit. Just to put it into perspective, at a recent National Drive Electric event, I spoke with a couple of people who had worked on the docks, the shipping docks, and they actually came over and checked out my car and were asking me about the Bolt EV because, one of them said, yeah, I've driven hundreds of these. And I thought, hundreds of these, and then you're asking me about them. And apparently, uh, according to them, for the last few months, the Bolt EV has by far been the highest number of vehicles that they've been exporting to Asia. So they've seen more Bolt EVs going out of the ports than any other vehicle that they've been shipping overseas. They said they actually refer to these as white mice because apparently before they load them up onto the containers to ship overseas, they put a white plastic covering over them, and it looks like a field of white mice out at the loading docks. So they referred to them as white mice, which I thought was funny. But it just sort of puts it into perspective how much of a priority GM has placed on the foreign market, in particular the Korean market, for the Bolt EV for the last few months. So seeing those total numbers, I thought surely they're shooting to trigger the federal tax credit at the beginning of Q1 2019. So essentially, the first few weeks of January, they're looking to get their 200,000th domestic plug-in sale. But I checked the inventory right now, and in September, between Bolts and Bolt EVs, there are over 8,000 that are in current inventory. So essentially, what we have in inventory right now in the United States would be enough to push GM over that 200,000 mark. It leads me to wonder, are they looking to trigger it in Q1 of 2019, or are they actually looking to trigger it in Q4 of 2018? I'm not sure. I think Q1 of 2019 would be a better plan for customers. I think it would be a better plan overall, but I'm no longer convinced that they're actually pushing it out that far. Mary Barra, CEO of GM, recently released an article talking about some of the electric vehicle plans, and one of the things that they're doing now is moving component manufacture to the United States along with an additional battery facility. So those are going to reduce the cost of building the Bolt EV by a lot. When they did something similar with the Volt, it actually caused about a 3 to 4, maybe $5,000 reduction in MSRP just by moving the manufacturing to domestic plants. So hopefully they're able to start reducing the cost of the Bolt EV significantly. Maybe we'll see an MSRP by the 2020 model year of low 30,000s. So if that's the case, then that could be what they're ramping up to. And in addition to that, the battery facilities, they've already stated that they're looking to increase production of the Bolt EV by 20% in Q4. So that means that in Q4 alone, they should be starting to be able to produce at least 3,500 to 4,000 Bolt EVs a month. That leads me to wonder, well, then when are they going to trigger this phase out, and what would the potential impacts be? And I really only see two options at this point. The first is they heavily subsidize, whether they do like the employee discounts or whatnot, but they heavily subsidize the Bolt EV and the Volt through a bunch of discounts, move as many of them as they can in September and early October, and trigger that phase out in early October. At that point, they just need to go gangbusters with as much production as they can, focusing solely on US deliveries. Now, the impact of doing that, though, is I think it will be negative for customers long run, because I do think that they have a couple other EVs that are going to be coming out. And rather than ramping up to that increased production level, I'd like to have seen them have that increased production level up and fully running. So it seems like they might not be able to just go straight 100% increase their production in October and be maxed out, right? I think it will take a slight ramp up for them to do that. And I would much rather see them ramp up their production first and then trigger it, which leads to the option two, right? I think it's better for that reason, but it's worse for optics and worse for PR, because essentially what option two is, continue to focus almost exclusively on the foreign markets. We're talking about shipping 3/4, maybe 100% of the Bolt EVs that they produce to places like Korea, China, Mexico, anywhere outside the United States. Essentially leave the US with only what inventory they currently have in stock. So we're already getting complaints from people who are outside California and outside, the ZEV states, where they haven't really seen any deliveries. And that might get worse. And that's why I said it's bad for optics, because essentially what it means is you're not going to see any more Bolt EVs and any more Volts than what we currently see on the lots. And unfortunately, the electric vehicle community in particular is very unfriendly to GM, and they're very unfriendly to GM's electric vehicle products. And doing this will only fan those flames. Tesla did something very similar with the Model 3 in July, and people not only forgave them for it, they encouraged them to do it, because they saw what would happen by, stockpiling for, the last couple weeks before the month Model 3s, so that they didn't trigger the federal tax credit early. People applauded that decision. If GM tries to do the same thing, they're not going to receive the same consideration from the electric vehicle community, and you're going to see a lot of electric vehicle publications, a lot of electric vehicle advocates going after GM, essentially, who killed the electric car part 2, not supporting your compliance car. It's all a load of BS, right? It is malarkey, but it's the reaction that you're likely to see. It's going to be a lot of negative press, but if GM does it long term, it's going to do a lot more good for the customers. You're going to see My guess is possibly 30 to 50% more customers able to actually get that federal tax credit than you would otherwise. So I do think option two is better. It's better for the customers, but I see GM getting punished for that decision unfairly, in my opinion, but it's more than likely what's going to happen. I'd really love to hear what you think, whether you think option A of just going full discounts, trying to trigger the federal tax credit phase out in early October, or whether you think that GM should stall, restrict domestic deliveries, and hold out until early January and trigger the federal tax credit then. I'd love to hear what you think, which one you think is the better option. If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. And as always, thank you for watching.